Hey guys, Vlad Moldavskiy here from MeetAdvisors.com. I'm joined with Tom Latourette, Managing Partner at M3 Learning. How are you today?
Good, Vlad. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I want to get started and tell our audience, what is M3 Learning?
So M3 Learning is a company that was founded by a gentleman by the name of Skip Miller. And so Skip's written 5 sales and sales management books. One of them is still on the bestseller list at Amazon, Proactive Sales Management. And so it's kind of a funny story. I'm the managing partner at M3. But 15 years ago, I was a vice president of sales for a building materials company. One of my regional managers read Skip's book. We hired Skip to come work inside our organization. He transformed the way we managed and metriced our salespeople. At that point, we had 50 salespeople, and we, I'd say maybe 8 years later, we were purchased by Fortune brands. 81 people became millionaires. It was a pretty cool story to be a part of.
So I wish I was a part of something.
Right, exactly.
Like
that. Yeah. I wasn't there long enough to be one of the millionaires, but
so M3 Learning, essentially what you guys are doing, you're teaching people how to sell.
Yeah, so we teach really 3 places. We teach sales. We teach organizations how to structure their sales process and how to really think powerfully in what should my sales process be. We teach sales managers how to metric, motivate, mentor their salespeople, and then we teach salespeople how to be really good at the point of attack. How do I have a relationship? How do I establish a relationship? And then how do I not push a product, but how do I help you solve whatever you need by being a consultative salesperson?
Mm-hmm. So when you guys, clear things up for me. Were you around when you guys launched this company, M3 Learning?
No. So I've been with Skip now for 5 years, but Skip's been doing this for almost 20 now. So.
And since you've been around, obviously M3 Learning, had history before that, but while growing, while scaling, what are some challenges you guys have faced? And at the same time, it's like, you're teaching selling, but how have you been able to sell others on coming in and getting lessons, advice, and really learning how to sell? So it's like you're selling someone,
I got to practice what I preach, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting for me. So I was a vice president of sales. I had 50 salespeople that reported. I had 6 regional managers, and we got sold to Fortune brands. I stayed on board for about a year, and then I wanted to do consulting. So all of a sudden I go from being a vice president of sales to the managing partner of my own business, even though it's Skip's business, but I'm the managing partner of the Chicago piece, right? But now I've got to go prospect, and I have to be the person whose people aren't returning the calls and they're not returning my emails. And even though I preach to my salespeople, hey, you got to prospect, it's the only way to grow their business. Now all of a sudden I'm prospecting, and I'll tell you, first year I was horrible at it. It's easier to teach it than it is to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a really fascinating experience for me to do exactly what you just said, is put myself in the shoes of the people that I'm teaching. What are the challenges that I have? How difficult is it to get that rejection or feel like, why isn't this person returning my call? I thought we had a great conversation, and now all of a sudden I can't get this person to even return an email. And so it's interesting to be a part of that as you're trying to grow your own business.
Yeah. To lead off that point, selling has definitely changed over the last few decades. I haven't been around for more than about 2.5 decades. But what do you see, what's the big trend in today's society? Because for me, as a director of ops and a relationship manager at, Mably Digital, and working at MeetAdvisors and, working on this project, for me, all of my sales have really been through relationships I've built. Yeah. So, maybe touch on how 2014 sales is changing. Now, obviously, it's different in every single business, but maybe just the overarching principle.
Yeah, so there's an interesting thing that we're seeing, especially as sales get more sophisticated. In a lot of places, it's a very technical sale, right? So if I'm a salesperson and I join a company, the first thing I learn being a salesperson is everything about my product, everything about my business. And so I get really, really good at that technical sale, right? And so I'll have conversations and I'll be able to converse with somebody. We call it a below the line type conversation. It's this place of, how does your product do what I need it to do? And so I bring you along the steps in my sales process. But eventually there's a point where this person says, ooh, I need to either get somebody else to approve this, or I got to think about this from a business side. And we call that a business case conversation. That's an above the line conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So whether I'm either having it with somebody else or whether I need to have the business owner think about not just the features and benefits of the product, but what impact that's going to have on their business, how it's going to create, maybe increase their market share or their market size. I'm not trained how to have that conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm trained to have the product and feature conversation,
Yeah.
but not this, how do I understand somebody's business and how do I ask the right questions to get that person to tell me what's going on in their business.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, to add to that point, if you don't understand the technical side or, at least the processes behind it, you're going to find yourself really confused and just not really understanding, not really knowing how to sell your product. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen it where I had a guy on a sales call or someone was trying to sell some sort of software and they're strictly a sales guy, but you got to know the technology before you can sell, because you're going to have questions asked, you're going to have, multiple questions asked, and it has happened to me, and I've had to teach myself to adjust to things like that and really prepare myself for questions that may be fired at me.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest things I see is that, especially with our clients, they know so much more than they've ever known. There's so much information that's out there on the internet, and many times they know more about our product than we might know by the time we're having that first conversation. So the customer wants us to have this product conversation. And we believe that what happens is if we start our relationship inside of a product conversation before I truly understand, why are we even having this conversation? What is it, what's happening in your business that's even allowing you to want me to have this conversation? If I don't understand that before, so we call that stage one, that's this initial interest stage. We see a lot of sales organizations skip that piece and they go right to product. And if I go right to product, I don't really understand why the person's even using it. Does that?
Totally.
You know what I mean?
It's funny because I just got off a call yesterday, and after the call, the individual was like, "Wow, it's amazing. You weren't really trying to sell me,"
Right.
And he ended up asking for a proposal. But before I even got started, I was like, "Listen, what are your goals? What do you see what are your, what's the indicators of success? Because with SEO, one company may have, results. For them, results might be keyword rankings improvement, but another company may say, well, for SEO strategy, we want our traffic to improve.
Right.
So really understanding and then going from there and kind of working your way, up to the proposal stage.
But think of how many salespeople would start the conversation. Let me tell you all about what we do and how we do it, instead of asking that easy question.
Tell me
what's happening. And the other piece we see a lot of organizations miss is, we call it a transfer of ownership stage. So after I educate, there's this place of, how do I try on what the solution is? So whether it's a test drive probably a test drive is the easiest way to think about it. I've been in cars before, right? Why do we all have to take a test drive in the car that we're picking when we're looking to purchase a vehicle? Well, the reason is because we want to envision ourselves in that car, right? There's a great show, I don't know if you've seen the show, Say Yes to the Dress.
I have not.
My daughter loves it. It's just a 14-year-old daughter. And so there's this really interesting thing that happens. The future bride comes in with her family, maid of honor, and they're going to try on wedding dresses. And they start the show by saying, I can only afford this. Here's my budget. There's no way that I can afford any more. And what happens? She puts the dress on, and budget goes out the window. She pictures herself as the bride she's always dreamed of, and she says, she starts seeing her future wedding day, right? So that's this transfer of ownership place. If we can engage our clients in this really powerful emotional setting where, holy cow, I can see how your solution is now going to solve the problem that I told you about all the way in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If I start seeing that, my heart goes somewhere, and then my mind has to follow it. Right? Budget isn't as important, and so it's a really interesting thing if you ever watch that show. They'll start out with a budget, they'll try the dress on, and every single time they go over budget. It's crazy, right?
That's funny. That's a funny concept, and it's true. I mean, it's true. I can tell you from just my personal experience. I've had times where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just try these shoes on, or I'm gonna just try, this. Take a ride in this car. And then after that, next thing you know,
I gotta have it.
I gotta have it.
There's no way. How can I go without these shoes, right?
Totally. One thing I like to ask entrepreneurs that come by MeetAdvisors.com is, what's one piece of advice you would give to our community, and whether it's something selling related or whether it's just really when growing a business and scaling a business, what's that one piece of?
Well, I'd say the first piece is I think that first stage in the sales process is so important. I think you've almost got to think about my first conversation as if we're on a first date. I would never start a first date by telling you all about who I am and what I'm all about and all the classes I took in high school and how well I did in those classes and here's all the trophies that I got. I probably would never get a second date, right? On a first date, what would you do? You'd ask, tell me about you. What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? I think if we as entrepreneurs can get that piece of, what I do is really great, and I know what I do really well. We'll have an opportunity to tell that story. But if I wait to tell that story and I find out your story first, I can make that story even more powerful. And if I truly understand why it is that you need what I can offer, I can tell you specifically how my piece is going to help you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Tom, what's your website?
So our website is m3learning.com, and folks can get a hold of me at tom@m3learning.com.
Guys, if you're looking for, let's see if you get this, dating advice and sales advice,
right, exactly.
Check out M3 Learning and check out MeetAdvisors.com for more videos and blogs. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for joining
us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.